Hello, and welcome to Third Coast Writer podcast about A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. Although my blog is dedicated to indie writers and modern classics, it's sometimes important to step back and look at the development of the American novel. And certainly Ernest Hemingway, who is and was larger than life to his reading public, is a good place to start. Hemingway was a very complex character in his personal life, and I think as you watch this film, you'll see a picture of Hemingway with Fidel Castro right after his victory in the right after Castro's victory in the Cuban Revolution. But to get back to A Farewell to Arms, it was first published in 1929 while Hemingway was living as an expatriate in Paris. He and a group of fellow writers were deeply influenced by World War I and were part of what Gertrude Stein dubbed the Lost Generation. Also, the novel is partly biographical, as Hemingway did serve as an ambulance driver for the Red Cross on the Italian front after failing his physical for the U.S. Army. In the novel, the protagonist, Frederick Henry, the character's life closely mirrors that of Ernest Hemingway. And Hemingway was wounded near Veneto, Italy, and sent to a hospital in Milan, where he met and fell in love with an American Red Cross nurse named Agnes von Kurowski. Von Kurowski later became the inspiration for the character of Catherine Barclay, who is Frederick Henry's love interest in the novel and is also a nurse at a Red Cross hospital in Milan. You can read more about von Kurowski if you're interested by going to Wikipedia and pulling up A Farewell to Arms. There you'll find a link and a picture and a short biography of von Kurowski. As part of the Lost Generation, Hemingway uses his novel not only as a story of the relationship between Frederick Henry and Catherine Barclay, but also to point out the futility of World War I. In fact, many of his contemporaries thought that the war would never end and that killing would continue indefinitely. And this had a profound impact on the writers and the intellectuals of Hemingway's day. And many of them became, like Hemingway, became expatriates in Paris or Rome. Hemingway ended up in Paris because of his desire to be a writer and felt that Paris would be much more fertile ground for his writing career. If without giving away more about the book, which I strongly encourage you to read, not only for the story, which is great, but also on how you can see the development of the American novel, and also a contemporary view of World War I, which Americans are not quite as familiar with as Europeans. In fact, I have read that to a European, an American discussing World War I would be like an Englishman discussing the American Civil War. And to this day, the battlefields of World War I are visited more frequently than the battlefields of World War II. So it has had a profound effect on Europe. World War I has in the 20th century and continues to do so here in the 21st century. If you're interested in Ernest Hemingway, either before or after you read this book, he wrote a short book story about his life in Paris called A Movable Feast, which I strongly recommend that you read. Talks about his life in Paris with the expatriate community and also The Lost Generation. Recently, there's been a literary fiction, or I should say a novel, which is literary fiction, called A Paris Wife by Paul McLean, which talks about Ernest Hemingway and his first wife and their early years living in Paris and how they became part of the literati scene and the group of intellectuals who flocked to Gertrude Stein and other influential writers in Paris at that time. One further comment about Hemingway. My cousin, one of my female cousins, a lot of people feel that Hemingway was a misogynist. Well, I didn't know what a misogynist meant, so I looked it up, and according to Webster, a misogynist is a man who hates women. And I think if you read this novel, you will discover that this is not true. However, you may feel that it is. And one of the great things about literature is discussing the various aspects of books and writers and the times that these people wrote in. So I would really like to hear your comments. Please write to my blog. My blog is thirdcoastwriter@blogspot.com. And I would love to hear your comments, whether you like the novel, hate the novel, like Hemingway, hate Hemingway, think he's a misogynist, whatever. Because the whole point of literature in our society is that it should be debated, discussed, and not everyone agrees. And I'm certainly open to hearing new ideas, as I think all of us are, about writers, especially famous writers like Hemingway. So once again, thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing your comments on my blog. I should say reading your comments on my blog. Thank you again very much. Goodbye.